Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our Let's Play series playing against Lieutenant Rainbow Slash, our new opponent, who has taken over from XTRG in this long-running series. The date is March 28th of 1942. The month of March is coming to a close, which means the Japanese landing bonuses are coming to a close, means it'll take longer for them to unload troops, and as you can see here, the Japanese are trying to get everything they can out of this sort of last-minute effort of unloading and whatnot. Now, you can see here we've got one motor torpedo boat engaging two Japanese destroyers. That seems like a little bit of a lopsided match. We'll see. I don't even know if he has any torpedoes, but at least he's chewing up enemy ammunition here off the coast of Java. You can see they're pulling back, and now they're engaging a heavy cruiser, light cruiser, and 3 destroyers. So that's even worse, but just taking shell hits and not actually, just taking shell fire, I should say, while all the shells miss here. So that MTB-8 is heroically going about its business here. Meanwhile, the submarine Truant off the coast of Java, it looks like it's being attacked here by Japanese destroyers, although they don't end up getting a firing solution or attacking. More motor torpedo boats and more Japanese destroyers. I'm guessing they're reacting to it, and the MTB-8 finally goes down with 2 shell hits from the Japanese destroyers there. F in the chat, I guess, yeah. Meanwhile, another U.S. submarine, this one's firing torpedoes on a Japanese destroyer off the coast of Java, and it missed, and now it's being depth charged. So if we fast forward through that, no hits, but quite a drubbing there from enemy depth charging. And looks like that's the end of the night. Oh, nope, we got one more sub-attack here off the U.S. East Coast. I think they're following that convoy that might be unescorted. And they're chewing through their own torpedo ammunition, I guess, as they throw a crap ton of torpedoes and engaging on the surface now. So perhaps we should have... well, actually, it's between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Okay, good to know. I think those cargo ships are actually unloaded at the moment, but you can see here the cargo ship goes down. Another turn of Japanese heavy cruisers bombarding Port Moresby. No, they're not transports, Devontia. They're just regular AKs, so like Liberty ships or something. We build one of those a day, right? We're fine. Meanwhile, Japanese heavy cruisers are bombarding off of the coast of Port Moresby, just a little bit to the north against our troops there that were driven into the jungle. This is like the second or third turn in a row that the Japanese have been bombarding those troops, so they must have chewed through most of their ammo. I'm not sure where they moved the AKE, but he's got to have an AKE nearby if he's going to keep bombarding these things so he can reload the ammunition. Unless he's, like, pulling way back, but I doubt it. The West Cactus sinks. I think that was the cargo ship that was being attacked by that Japanese sub. And the Swordfish here in the Java Sea doesn't do anything. Fast transporting here and near the Banda Sea by some Japanese troops on some unoccupied islands. Further unoccupied islands to the east of New Caledonia being occupied. He's really going to strengthen his position in that area near New Caledonia, continuing to threaten our supply line with Australia. Okay, we're still in the nighttime phase, actually. All right, so now we're going into the AM air operation phase. You can see recon is starting here as the sun is now up on this turn. Looks like the South Pacific has weather forecast of rain at the moment. That'll probably slow things down. Meanwhile, Japanese destroyers are attacking our cargo ships at Sabang. I did not try to load up our troops there, so that's good. But you can see 4 Japanese destroyers coming in on 2 Allied destroyers and 5 merchant ships. This should be interesting to see how our destroyers fare, at least. You can see they are engaging our destroyers. They're shooting. So far, no hits landed against the Davitt and the Courtinier. The cargo ships are probably going to die. We've got a couple of small APs in port here. I don't even think they're in a task force. And then we've got the Mingsang and the other cargo ships here that are full of fuel, actually, because we were loading them with fuel to try and get some of that out of the Dutch East Indies. So we'll go ahead and fast forward through. It's actually not 4 destroyers, though. It looks like there's 2 destroyers and a torpedo boat. The warships are trading shells. I think that bottom one's probably a torpedo boat as well. So let's go ahead and fast forward through here. All right, so at least one cargo ship sunk. A lot of smoke, a lot of damage taken on our ship's end. Doesn't look like one of the Japanese destroyers is smoking, though, so maybe we landed a few hits on her. Meanwhile, our own destroyers appear to be giving off some pretty dark smoke as well. And let's see how this thing ended up. So, 2 shell hits on the kamikaze, heavy fires. Heavy fires, really? Unless it, like, detonated a torpedo, I can't imagine 2 shells from destroyers are going to sink an enemy destroyer. But maybe we at least damaged 2 of these destroyers. We're saying 3 shell hits and on fire, 2 shell hits and heavy fires, and then the torpedo boat suffered 1 shell hit and heavy fires. Meanwhile, our own ships, the destroyer DeWitt took 2 shells and is on fire. The Courtinier took 1 shell hit as heavy fires. The Ming Sang took 7 shell hits and 2 torpedo hits and was sunk. The troop transport Sin Ken Sang took 10 shell hits and is sunk. The troop transport Metang took 14 shell hits and is sunk. The troop transport Kaopong took 11 shell hits and is sunk. And the cargo ship Kolak took 28 shell hits and is sunk. So he devastated the merchant marine there. Fortunately, no troops were on any of those ships. And he lost some troops on his own end as well. Or at least he suffered some damage on his own end. So you can see our destroyers, which is all that's left, are withdrawing to Colombo after that surface engagement. Meanwhile, I did send 2 light cruisers to Oosthaven and then south to engage the Japanese carriers. So it looks like, I don't know if they pulled back to Oosthaven. They were set to flank speed. So I'm not sure why they're sitting up here. Also, it doesn't look like there's Japanese ships to the south of Oosthaven, although maybe those are just subs. I'm not sure. The intent was to send these 2 light cruisers down to charge into the enemy formations and try and break them up a bit. Meanwhile, we can see here 33 G3M2 Nels are hitting Batavia. Go ahead and fast forward through that. Doesn't look like we got a cap or anything up. I think I had my Hurricanes rest today, so they did a little bit of damage, but only to the non-combatants. They came in and bombed at 4,000 feet again. They suffered a lot of damage from that. That's nuts. He's taking a lot of damage by coming in so low. That's going to be a lot of ops losses, I would think. That feels reckless, to be honest. He's not coming in that low at Sorobang. He's coming in at 10,000 feet there. 20 Nels going after troops that had been pushed into the jungle near Balikpapan. So that's more or less just a training run for his pilots. I don't have anything to intercept his destroyers with Devontia unless he tries to push beyond Palembang, or beyond Sumatra. Fighter sweep over Batavia, fighter sweep over Surabaya. It looks like the bombers arrived early, which it would matter if we had a cap, but the fact that his fighters came in after the bombing raid, you know, I guess if we had a cap up that was still there to shoot down, it would make sense, but the timing of those raids, not entirely, I guess, logical from a Japanese perspective. Alright, so he's hitting more troops in Sumatra that have been driven into the jungle. Again, this is mostly just training ops, I imagine, for his troops, as all we have is a little bit of flak to shoot back. He is bombing our troops at Bataan, so we were trying to march our troops out of Bataan to Clark Field. He didn't bomb them last turn, but he is bombing them this turn. You can see 26 Ki-51 Sonias coming in. Looks actually like they bombed the airfield, not the troops. So 3 runway hits and 1 supply hit. The supply hit sucks, because we only have so much supply left at Bataan. 11 Sonias coming in here. Hey, Commissar, hope you're having a good one. Alright, so you can see here 5 aircraft damage there. He's bombing from 20,000 feet with his dive bombers. Our cruisers still haven't engaged anything. I didn't see just there if there's still... Oh, no. God damn it. So his carrier bomber, his bombers, his Kate... I guess these are torpedo bombers, right? Are hitting some of our ships with bombs. At least 1 bomb hit into the Raleigh, and it's on fire. We did shoot down 1 B5N1 Kate. But I don't know why they're sitting at Oosthaven. They had orders to charge south with absolute threat tolerance. So I guess the only good thing is they didn't drop torpedoes. They only dropped bombs, 250-kilogram bombs. Sean Mack, those Kates are not armed with torpedoes, though. I don't know if it's a range thing. Maybe they're out of range of the torpedoes. More sweeping at Batavia. Okay. All right, so some recon over Java, where, by the way, the 7th Aussie Division should be beginning to unload into Burma. A crack outfit, so every minute that we can get troops off those ships is a minute sent from the gods, if you will. Yeah, it could just be an issue where his light carriers don't have many torpedoes. Maybe he doesn't have them set to use torpedoes yet. Not sure. So another raid here north of Moresby on those troops that are basically out of supply. He's just sort of reducing and destroying them. Although mostly just disabling, not really destroying a whole lot. Okay. More recon. 10 more Kates are coming in. Some B5 N2s and 1s. Another bomb into the Raleigh here. Another 250 kilogram bomb. A third bomb into the Raleigh. Belt armor's hit, at least. I guess that's good, right? And then a 250 kilogram bomb into the Detroit, and a second one into the Detroit. Severe fire, and a third one into the Detroit, and a torpedo mount was destroyed. They're coming from the Suiho, and that third strike didn't get any hits, so it looks like that second raid, 2 bomb hits into the Raleigh, so she's taken 3 total. 3 bomb hits into the Detroit, she's taken 3 total, and is on fire. I mean, neither of these are great cruisers. They're both Omaha classes, so they're thoroughly obsolete. But I didn't want to lose them to no purpose. I was hoping they'd at least charge in and fire off some rounds and maybe damage some Japanese ships. I was trying to get them sprinting in at night so they could fight, but it looks like they didn't get far enough for one reason or another. In any event, maybe it'll still keep him on his toes, right? Make him keep those carriers around, not do anything rash, because who knows, maybe crazy historical gamer will send in some light cruisers to, you know, give him a little bit of a telling to. Oh, don't worry, the commander of that task force will almost certainly lose his job. Meanwhile, the Stingray takes 2 hits in the Java Sea. Not Gis Maker, thank you very much for the follow. Also, Canadian Pagan, thank you very much for the follow. Japanese destroyers are now bombarding at Sabang, so it looks like they or someone's going to be unloading some troops there. So it looks like they had some cargo ships as well. They unloaded some troops. They took 8 casualties. We took 100 on that bombardment, mostly non-combatants. Big vs. Dictivus, thank you very much for the sub there. 2 months. Appreciate it. 180 Japanese casualties in the landings, 9 combat squads destroyed due to lack of prep. Looks like he's landing an infantry regiment or 2. More landings on the southern tip of Java. Good Kami cruiser attempt anyway. Yeah, well, who knows? I mean, if all they are is on fire, I'm hoping that we can get them out of there. We might be able to get them away, you know, unless he sends his carriers to charge after him, but that's going to burn fuel and pull him away from where he really needs to be, and that is protecting his landing forces and his ships in the Java Sea. He could send a surface task force up there. That is definitely something he could do, but again, that would potentially pull him away from his carrier screen, so hopefully we're able to pull our cruisers out there. I don't think the ships are as badly damaged as the Prince of Wales was. That was a miracle that we got him out of there. Fighting flooding all the way back. Meanwhile, the 38th Division is attacking at Kalajiti on the Java coast, so it looks like they're going to drive back our troops and establish themselves on 2 different beaches, one at Semarang and one at Kalajiti. So 2 beachheads on the Java coast. He's got a full division ashore. Meanwhile, deliberate attack at Kaigan. We'll see how that goes here on Mindanao. We've been holding out on Mindanao way longer than I would have expected. We've wrecked several Japanese units, really battered a brigade. It's at like, maybe it's lost 30 to 40% of its force. The 16th Infantry Regiment has lost more than 50% of its force. So he's going to need to spend some time sort of replacing losses on those units. And the attack does not go his way. He does get 1-to-1 odds and reduces the forts, so he does make progress there. But he still loses 1,200 troops, 19 squads destroyed, 47 disabled. It does tell him that our supply is low, so he does know that. But you can see here that we lose 364 casualties, 40 squads destroyed, 14 disabled. He loses 19 and 47. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the way that Mindanao is held out. For sure doing better than I think anyone would have realistically expected. Do we still have the 155mm long toms on the Philippines? I think so, yeah. They haven't been destroyed in any event. Alright, so he takes that base on the western coast of Java. Meanwhile, 2 infantry regiments are located at Sabang. 2 full infantry regiments, the 112th and the 46th. We'll have to make sure our troops don't bombard, but we've got about 140, 170 assault value on the defensive. I think we've got like level 3 trenches there, although our troops kind of suck, so maybe we can hold out there. Elements of the 18th Division landed to the west of Kuala Lumpur. They will likely drive up to Medan and then Sabang as well. So he does have almost a full division ashore at Sumatra between the 2 regiments and then like the 3rd of a division there. He's taking Pentecost Island here in the Espiritu Santos area. He's also doing a bombardment attack at Ambon. So the Sparrow Brigade, I guess, is still holding out, or battalion or whatever. Meanwhile, he's got elements of the 65th Brigade landed there. He'll take this base. I mean, all these bases where he attacks and we have no troops he's going to take. Epi, Utupu. Alright, so I think that's it for the turn. Sabang expands its fortifications to size 2. Cyan airfields to 2. I should stop Cyan's airfield expansion, given I'm planning on pulling out of there. Don't want to help the Japanese out. I should use what, Devontia? Is the HNLMS Surabaya in this scenario? I mean, we've got 155s. I don't know what you mean by we should use them. We attacked out of Bataan a couple turns ago. If they were there, then I'm sure they would be used. Yeah, I mean, I plan to use the 155s, but right now most of them are, I think, locked up in terms of political points on the U.S. West Coast. But that is something I intend to do. Oh, nice. So this base force is actually about to arrive with a few engineers and some anti-aircraft machine guns. I guess they're not really going to accomplish much with that. These guys are coastal guns, so we can't move them. He's got 2 regiments ashore at Sabang. We're going to stop the bombardments. There's no reason to do that. We're also going to switch this brigade from rest to combat. We've got 164 assault value here. What do these guys experience? 47, 44, 35. Really low morale, too. So not a very good situation here at Sabang in terms of the units. We do have level 2 fortifications. That's not really going to do much. We also have some aircraft. I need to get these buffaloes out of here. Let's fly him to Port Blair, and then we'll move him up to Rangoon once we get to Blair. We can probably upgrade him to Kitty Hawks too, so make him a little bit stronger in terms of the quality of the aircraft. So that'll be a nice 18 squadron plane with Kitty Hawks in the Burma theater soon. Meanwhile, we're gonna pull these DO-24K1s out of Sabang as well, because that base will fall before too long. Let's move them. I don't know. I mean, I guess in order to get some like decent recon, let's wait on that. So where do we have? They can't go to non-Dutch bases, but they do need some aviation support. So we could send them to Padang to try and get some aviation recon in the northern portion of the map, sort of the northern section of the Dutch East Indies. And then we get the other 3 and I guess just send them back down to Batavia or somewhere in that vicinity to try and pull more troops out and assist our evacuation. Or do more recon in the Java Sea, one or the other. Alright, the Singapore may die, but whatever. Alright, so let's see here. These guys are doing supply. What unit? They're pulling out the Gaul Battalion. So I think we want to set these other guys to the Gaul Battalion. By the way, we didn't launch any naval attacks with our air units again this turn, which I don't know why. Pick up troops. The Gull Battalion. So 2 more transports to help with that. The Gull Battalion at Batavia, meanwhile, is what? What are they up to? They are one of our strongest units. You can see somewhere. Maybe they're not. 24? They're way down the list. But in terms of quality, there's 61 experience, 72 morale. 18 infantry sections here. They've got 2 mortars, 4 anti-aircraft machine guns, 5 2-pound anti-tank guns, 2 Vickers sections, 2 CMF combat engineer sections, 2 Bren sections. What is still left behind? So they've got a load cost of 476, total stacking of 539, total load of 592. The troops left behind still at Colac, 11 more infantry sections, and a bunch of support. The support is less important, but I would like to get the infantry sections out. The 25-pounders can't be moved. They're too heavy for aircraft. But we're about half of the unit is out. Really, the important thing is those 11 infantry squads. Okay, so he's taken that base. None of my B-17s ever want to repair. That's fun. So I guess the good thing about our planes not flying is we've got pretty good readiness on the P-40s and the Hurricanes. We could try to engage the enemy fighters over Batavia again. We could also bring in the fighters from Tijlap, which is another 7 Warhawks. So that is an option. It does look like his carriers are moving east, northeast, but east. So how do our cruisers look here? The Detroit is at 12 systems and 5 float, so she's okay. The Raleigh looks like she anchored. She can still make 27 knots. She's only got 13 float, but she does have some fires. So, and what's just outside here? He's moving a light cruiser and a destroyer west. Presumably to try and intercept shipping in the Coast Islands area, maybe? I don't have a lot of shipping there. Most of these guys are heading away. So, I mean, unless he's really going to chase them. I think most of these guys are safe. I don't think it would be a good idea to fight him with my cruisers. The Detroit might be in decent enough shape to engage, but I don't think I'd trust the Raleigh in a fight with 47 systems damage. The problem with targeting these guys with planes becomes more the fact that smaller task forces like that are really hard to sort of hit. But we do have our planes ordered to attack naval combat. I can't tell them a specific target to attack. I can only tell them to attack. So if they think they've got a chance to attack him, they may do it. Meanwhile, he's moving these guys west. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to drop some troops on Christmas Island. It is unoccupied. It would be a thorn in our side if he could get, you know, Val's or Betty's or whatnot out deep into the West Pacific. Although Christmas Island's still a little bit far east to really be too dangerous for our supply convoys there. I mean, it's 13 hexes east of Christmas Island, and his bombers can go about 18, so he could reach to about here. But we'd still have a pretty good sea lane. Coast Island is the real danger point for taking, and so I've already reinforced it with 2 crack Australian Pioneer battalions. Well, maybe not crack. I guess their experience is low, but they're good quality units. We are unloading some additional supply there, so we've got about 185 ashore. We need 189. We've got 426 still unloading. These guys docked and have a little bit. They've got about 995 left. I guess the one good thing about being at Oosthaven now is we've got a full load of fuel. These guys were kind of low on fuel, but they've topped off. Meanwhile, I do have some cruisers that are moving north. I've got some light cruisers moving north, so I think what I'm going to actually do is set these guys to go to Christmas Island, just in the event that that's where he's sending his light cruisers. And maybe we can meet him and give him a little bit of a surprise. I'm not sure I want to sprint there. I don't think it would be smart from a fuel perspective. I would burn up too much. But I don't think he's going to... His carriers aren't going to be looking west of Java, most likely anyway, from their current position, especially if they're moving northeast. So like over here, they're not going to really be able to reach out that far. So I'll send these light cruisers north to Christmas Island. I've got some mine layers also on the way to the Coast Islands. Yes, I'm aware of that, like a G-Man, but they do have that. They were in strat mode because they were unloading. I'm not worried about him landing troops there. But in any event. I don't really have the supply to build forts yet, unfortunately. I also don't have destroyers with any of these units to form sort of a makeshift task force to engage as cruisers. So we'll see about setting up some aircraft to maybe go after these light cruisers and destroyers. We'll send our own light cruisers up to Christmas, see if we can't surprise them a little bit. That being said, Java's obviously on borrowed time. All of those units are static. These guys are not, and so they are strat moving to Batavia with some additional engineers. What is Batavia's entrenchment up to, by the way? 83%. We're making progress, guys. There is a slim chance that Batavia could get to level 4 forts before he arrives. Looks like he's already ordering this division here to move west, so they're moving for Bandurong, which is a good mountain hex for defenses, but is not something that we can, realistically defend. The troops there aren't static, but I don't... Oh, actually, it's a good unit. 32 AV. They're tanks. But I can't move them. They're forced to stay here, aren't they? Well, that sucks. All right, so he's going to be driving west, which means we probably have got like 4 or 5 turns at a minimum before he arrives. We'll be getting real close to level 4 forts. Let's see here. So here's the question. If I move these guys out of Oosthaven right away, they may get intercepted by this Japanese task force. But maybe we want them to. It's an opportunity to do something, right? Richard Connolly. Be a hero. Be aggressive. All right. So we are going to order this task force to pull back to the Coast Islands. But Richard Connolly is in command. Task force routing absolute and direct. I do not care if you run into the enemy. Do a little bit of damage. Now, what I don't know is, I do want to pull the other light cruiser out. I don't really want it to fight, but I do want to get it out. But I also don't want to just serve it up as, raw meat to the Japanese. So does it make sense to have a crippled destroyer in your task force, or cruiser in your task force with a slightly better cruiser? Or does it make more sense to send them separately? Because they both need to get out of there. His bombers are gonna eventually try and hit Oosthaven again. Oh wow! So it looks like they already pulled out some of the air group from this cruiser. They're like, shit, we got to get off this thing. Okay. I'm just wondering if it's better to leave them in port for 1 turn to see what these guys do, even if it means, like, if it risks him bombing Oosthaven itself. Because if I send it independent, it's just raw meat for the Japanese to attack. Okay. Like a G-Man, he may have had escorts for his planes. It doesn't always show you escorts on the attacks, I don't think. If you don't have any aircraft up defending. Meanwhile, let's take a look and see how the 7th Australian is doing at Rangoon. So you can see, obviously, we split it into 2 task forces, so one of them can dock and unload. So these guys they unloaded some of the troops anyway. Now, they are set to amphibious, which I believe means they'll unload much more quickly. And then this other group here is 94,000 or whatever. 9,400 troops. So it looks like there's still about 16,000 troops on the ships. In terms of the unit, however, oh, wow. So when you're in amphibious, those troops get off real fast. all of the AIF sections, pretty much, or almost all of the AIF sections, all of them are. So 100% of the Australian infantry is already a short Rangoon. 100% of the Brens, 2/3 of the combat engineers, half of the Vickers, none of the anti-tank guns, about 1/3 of the mortars, or 1/4 of the mortars, one of the 25-pounders. So the heavy artillery and the vehicles are still on the ships, but the bulk of the actual shooting men and a good chunk of the support are already ashore. And so that's good news for us in the event that he does, start trying to bomb that task force as it's trying to unload. Is a DLC or mod? Are you talking about the map art? This is a mod for the map. All right, so the 7th Australian, 7,200 of its stacking costs are already ashore. If we take a look at unit organization, we still have about 5,260 assault value still on transports. And then we still have, big chunks of artillery and support and whatnot, but at least the infantry is more or less ashore. Meanwhile, we have a little bit of movement here for some ships. Actually, these guys are coming in with other elements of the Australian 7th. So these guys are coming in with 107 motorized support. The support, if that got destroyed, is a little bit less dangerous just because it's sort of, generic, and so it can be more easily replaced through pools. Australian infantry squads are not very prevalent, so those are much more difficult. Surface combat ships to Rangoon to protect it from bombardment. I'd consider it, but it would also open up battleships to air attack, which I'm not really thrilled at that idea. Oh, by the way, the Formidable arrived. So we have a carrier in the Indian Ocean. It doesn't have, it's 19 F4Fs, that's the Martlet 2s, and then it's got about, 18 Albacore 1 biplane bombers? Oh yeah, good call. I can only send cruisers there anyway. We also have another task force that has the final elements of the 7th Australian Division. Again, more support elements on the way. These guys are all on the return leg, so a lot of shipping is on the return leg. And then we have some heavy cruisers actually here, the Dorsetshire, the Cornwall, the Emerald, and the Cape Town, heading south. We were going to try and intercept his ships at Sabang. That was the goal anyway. Our 2 destroyers made it out. They're on their way back to Colombo. So here's the Dutch destroyers. The Witty de Vith and the Courtinier. They both suffered pretty heavy damage, 34 systems and 22 systems damage. He could try and pursue and probably finish them off. Looks like they used up the bulk of their ammo, or certainly more than half of it. These guys are headed to Perth. The fact that I have so much shipping in range of Bangkok is sad for you, Helenstrat? I mean, he hasn't done anything to shut it down. Once he starts, flooding the Andaman Sea and the Bay of Bengal with Nels and Bettys, yeah, I'll stop sending shipping in there. But if he's going to keep ignoring that, then of course I'm going to take advantage of that and strengthen my position in Burma as much as I can until he stops me. By the way, it also looks like the SVF or whatever it was brigade is totally out of Rangoon now. So you can see here all these recon aircraft switch back to supply. We have 99 fighters at Rangoon. Probably need to adjust the patrol levels here. You're getting a little bit tired. We have 16 in Paguz, so that's 115 fighters. We have an additional 16 out at Lascaux, which we can flood into Rangoon when needed to give us 131 fighters. And then we've got 27 here at Mandalay to give us about 158 fighters. 27 of those are P-38 Lightnings. We scavenged a bunch of East Coast squadrons, and so these guys aren't even technically in the production pool yet, but we've kind of gotten an advanced force of 27 P-38s with 16 more in the replacement pools. So a pretty good unit there. We could probably launch some sweeps or other types of missions to really play havoc with him in the region. And these pilots or these planes are now almost fully repaired. About a week until the last one is completed, but that's a pretty damn good fighter force there with some really good pilots here. Pappy Boynton is a major leading the squadron. And then you've got 2 pilots, actually, including him at 88 experience, several in the upper 70s. No one's below 67. That is a damn experienced pilot pool. No one's below 66 in their air traits. The defense is a little bit weaker, the defensive flying, but if we go on like offensive missions with sweeps, they should be pretty damn good. The fact that you just see victory points getting away, well, they're, as long as he doesn't attack him, I think we're good there. All right, so we do have the Formidable at Colombo, as I said, along with the destroyer Paladin. If we disband them into port, you can see here we actually have 3 battleships at Colombo. We've got the Ramillies, the Resolution, and the Revenge. Our heavy cruisers are all actually out, so we've got this cruiser task force down here, the Exeter and the Trump, and then they were going to go meet up with these cruisers here to have a 3 heavy cruiser, 2 light cruiser, or actually 3 heavy cruiser, 3 light cruiser force. And then I was going to send them down to defend Sabang based on the intelligence that we got, but they already landed there. So I do find it a little bit annoying that every time I seem to get intelligence about a task force moving or a landing about to occur, it occurs one day before, I get the intel one day before it happens, which kind of sucks because it's like, well, how am I supposed to use, code breaking and intel if I don't find out about it at least a few days in advance? So that kind of sucks. Loading fuel up on these guys. They're almost to 100%. Same here. So they're gonna get into the fray. Meanwhile, my carriers are at Esperance in southern Australia. Are these guys at 100? No. So let's go ahead and replenish at sea, I guess. So that'll get everybody up to 100 fuel in this task force. This task force will replenish at sea as well, get them up to 100% fuel. And then you can see here that our fleet oilers had a bunch of fuel drained down from them, so they had 16,000 fuel. We just put 11,000 of that into the carriers, and so both carrier groups are at 100% fuel capacity, completely refueled. And now the question becomes, our carriers are on the southwest tip of Australia. What do we want to do with them? Do we want to send them up to Java? It probably is a little bit late, although he may not have heavy air units in place. The bases he's taken already, I guess Kelajidi could be turned into a pretty strong air base, but the other base is not. And, maybe we could hit some shipping in the Java Sea and stay out of range of his stuff. Otherwise, we could send him back east. They're not really in position to take any action against his heavy cruisers that are bombarding our troops at Port Moresby. The Moresby Brigade, meanwhile, is down to 3. It's got 25 disabled. Didn't we start pulling some of them out to Cairns? Yeah, so we started pulling these guys out. We got 1 infantry section, a Bren section, a 2-pound anti-tank gun, 2 mortars, 2 Lewis guns, and 3 support. We got 88 stack cost, or 112 load cost out of there. There's still an additional almost 1,000. Where's the Kitty Butai, Nico? I don't know. We do know that the light Kitty, or the mini Kitty Butai, is here off the coast of Java. And I think we saw it had the Junyo with it as well, so there's 1 fleet carrier with it. So this is where the mini Kitty Butai is, but I have not spotted the Kitty Butai in quite a while, so I'm not really sure where his fleet carriers are. All right, so that's the situation there. In terms of other stuff going on this turn, probably not a ton to highlight. We've got the Americal Division, or Americal Division, which is, getting close to Australia, so they're just southeast of the Tonga Islands. They're about to pass in the next day or two the Fiji line in the north, and so this is one of the few really heavy-hitting, full-size American divisions that we have access to at the moment. She's on her way to Australia, but I'm kind of tempted to slingshot around to Australia and send him up into Burma. Not that I want to make a fight to the finish for Burma with all my units, but if things keep moving slowly there, it might not be a bad idea to try and reinforce Burma with a second top-notch division. Will we ever get French squads again? I don't know. I don't know how that works. So there's that. Bombarding in Moresby. We do have some sub-patrols off the U.S. East Coast. We do have some yard patrols here that did actually go really close to where that enemy sub is, but apparently they didn't detect it or do anything with that. Meanwhile, we do have enough points now, and we had them last turn as well, to unlock the 27th Infantry Division if we want. So it'll cost 1,593 points to change its headquarters, so we can unlock this unit and use it in theater, and then we'd probably spend a week or two replenishing it because it's below full strength, but that's why it's so cheap. So we could get another division ready to start moving. That would give us, I think we've got one Australian division in Australia now. Yeah, the 3rd Australian division. No, that's not it. These guys are way... Why are there so many disabled troops here? Are they a new formation? Well, the 3rd Australian is also locked. It's only 600 points. You might want to change the headquarters on that. It's relatively weak, but... They upgraded that division? So they upgraded to Australian squads from like militia squads? That would make sense. It's kind of tempting to say maybe we should change their headquarters, though. I don't know if when the units go from disabled to not disabled, if they become more expensive. Where is the other Australian division? I've got 2 of them. 2 of the crack divisions. The 4th Australian is another restricted. These guys are just militia, though, so I'm not going to spend to upgrade them. You're right, Co, but the Australians, the expense of unlocking the Australians would take about 12 days. I would get 12 days. I would get 600 political points in 12 days if I do nothing else. So in 12 days, I'd have a division in the West, whereas it's going to take me 30 days to get anything out of the U.S. into the West. So realistically, I could do both. I have another Australian division somewhere. Here, the 6 Aussies. These are a crack division as well. 772 experience, 99 morale, 323 AIF sections. This is a pretty good division. This is the same as the guys who are in Burma. So this is sort of my unlocked crack Aussie division, which if we did, and I'm not saying we do, but if we did want to launch a campaign against New Caledonia, which is probably not the wisest thing. I want to try and avoid sort of his heavy-hitting spots. I think the way to neutralize New Caledonia is probably to land at like Ifate, New Hebrides, Lac-Rito, at some of these dot bases that aren't going to be as well defended. Upgrade their airfields to 4 or 5. Use those aircraft to completely obliterate anything Japanese on these islands that can pose a threat, and then just isolate and move on. Rather than like actually launching direct assaults on any of these, on New Caledonia or Esprit de Santu or any of these bases where he thinks we would be coming, right? I also do want to deploy some PBYs to Baker Island just because it's so far forward, and we do have an AVD here, so we can support up to 6 PBYs here. And PBYs on Baker would give us a nice, line of sight into Tarawa or other places like that. We're moving some subs through these areas as well. But it would be a nice nice sort of recon base for us. Do you have some free friendships? Yeah, we had a mine layer that was Hero Man. All right, so the Hornet arrived at Port Pearl Harbor, and she has an April upgrade, which is just a few days away. That upgrade will give her... Does she not have radar right now? She has CXAM radar now. She will be getting... No, the radar's not changing. It looks like the 1.1-inch AA guns are staying the same. So the change here is we're switching out some 50 cals for 20mm Oerlikons. 20mm Oerlikon is a much better anti-aircraft gun than the 50 caliber machine gun. The 50 cal just lacks the range and punching power, for that matter. You can see the 50 cal has a range of 3,000 yards. The Oerlikon has 4,000 yards. Penetration of 10 versus penetration of 9. So we'll I'm going to disband the Hornet and put it into port, and then we'll probably just upgrade it right away in the next couple of days when its upgrade goes online. Cadkin, thank you very much for the follow. Shice Normal, thank you for the follow as well. All right, so we do have some cruisers that also returned. They've got some system damage we'll just knock out. Our APDs arrived at Pearl as well. This President Jackson, I don't have troops I want to transport out of Pearl right now, do I? I mean, eventually I'd like to. So we've got the 161st Regiment, which is already at Suva. We've got the 35th and the 27th Infantry Regiments. How much would they cost to unlock? 652 and 657. So we could, for about 1,300 points, we could unlock these two regiments on Pearl, transport them to Suva, and have the 25th Infantry Division, which would be a pretty damn good division as well. The only reason I don't want to do that right now is that would leave Pearl very lightly defended in the event he tries to do anything tricky. We may want to move the USMC troops, because they're part of the 2nd Marine Division, which is split up between Pago Pago, Vavu, but also it doesn't make a lot of sense to do anything with these because until the 6 Marines arrive in 47 days, we can't form the 2nd Marine Division. Okay. Yeah, Cad, I would say this is a one-of-a-kind game. Day-by-day turns in the Pacific Theater. Everything modeled down to the battalion level, basically. Sprint Lex and Sarah up to Pearl with the Omaha cruisers for their upgrades. Lightfoot, I mean, that's a long sprint. I kind of don't know if I want to do that right now. We'll see. They're on the west coast of Australia right now. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Prince of Wales and Renown and see how they're doing on their repairs. Right? Renown? Or Repulse, sorry. Repulse will be ready in 40 days, so she is almost done repairing all of the major damage, just 3 major flood, 6 engine. I wonder if we switch these guys out of here, if we could get that system down in 18 days if we put her to pier side. The flood and engine damage would still be there, relatively minor. I wonder if it would repair more quickly that way. Like, if we moved it to pier side, it would take 3 days to move it to pier side, so 21 days and all of the system damage would be gone. And then would it take another 19 days to repair 3 flood and 9 engine? I don't know. I don't want to change anything yet, but... meanwhile, the Prince of Wales, 253 days still. She's still at 45 flood and 38 engine. In 2024, when we finally get there, she'll be back and great. All right. These cargo ships. Good amount of supply at Cape Town. Let's take a look at the intelligence for this turn. No air-to-air losses, no destroyed-on-the-field losses, 1 flak loss for the Japanese, 7 operational losses for the Japanese, 4 for the Allies. Pretty light day for aircraft losses, 8 and 4. 2 Kates for him, 1 flak, 1 ops, 1 Lily, 1 Oscar, 1 Nate, 1 Tina, 1 Mavis, 1 Alf. Allies lost 1 Hudson, 1 Catalina, 1 Blenheim, and 1 I-15. Hopefully it wasn't Yuri of Wolfpack 345's channel. All right, so what about our bombers at Mandalay? I didn't even see. Bombers at Mandalay. We've got up to 26 ready bombers at Mandalay, all B-17s. I also do want to draw replacements for these guys, right? Some elements of the division are still at they're at Batavia. What are they doing at Batavia? They not transit all the way? Only one of them is ready. Well, I'll fly it. Don't want him to get blown up on the base. So he'll merge. That leaves 3 more B-17s behind at Batavia. But it means 1 more at Mandalay, so brings us up to 28, 27. The E's, so we could pull 1 more E into this squadron, I think. Although it doesn't look like it wants to give me that option. The other option would be potentially to upgrade one of our D squadrons to E's, because we do have enough aircraft to do it, but it also won't let me do that. The airfield's too small, I think. How are we doing bomber-wise? So if we go into the pools, we take a look here. We've got 11 A-20 Havocs, 9 B-26 Marauders, 9 B-17Es, and 9 B-17Ds. Jack Tank, I don't want to bomb Port Blair quite yet. I'm going to do one of 2 things. I'm either going to use my heavy cruisers to bombard his troops there, or I'm going to use my battleships to bombard Port Blair. I don't want to give away the fact that I have my... I don't want to tell him yet that I've got 30 heavy bombers in Mandalay. I really don't want him to know that. Because if he knows we've got 30 B-17s in Burma, that changes things a little bit. Also, I would like to get the airfield upgraded a little bit as well so that we can be more effective in our attacks out of Mandalay. But 30 B-17s isn't anything to sneeze at. And I sort of want to hold my punch until I'm really ready to kind of put my weight behind it. All right. China. That's the only thing we haven't really looked at yet. So he's still got his troops in Quilin. Looks like he brought another division down there. Probably not good to get to level 4 forts. Meanwhile, we're at 1,800 assault value here. Holy crap, the 66 Chinese Corps. 450 assault value. 50 experience isn't too bad either for the Chinese, I feel like. Meanwhile, we've got a little bit of reinforcements. We've got 100 to 101 assault value on the way. Elements of the 54th Corps. We're pulling out of this northern defensive position at Cyan. So we are seeing 28 enemy units here marching along this railway. Let me look real quick. Some of his units are trying to cross the river. There's a little arrow for this unit moving to this hex, which means he is trying to move where he does not have a roadway. That's not going to work. It's also rough terrain. What the hell does he think he's doing? Like a G-Man, I've mostly been trying to get the bombers back ready. That's why, for what it's worth. They were all disabled or in really rough shape. I was trying to get the squadrons up to snuff in terms of their aircraft readiness before I started doing training on them. All right, so he's got 28 units here that are moving west. He's leaving 13 behind to cover his flank from these troops crossing into their rear. So he's moving 28 units west towards Cyan. We've already kind of made the decision to pull out of Cyan itself and withdraw north into the mountains, sort of in this vicinity here, to defend against a drive either north or, maybe moving him to this hex and giving the north up altogether. I don't know that that's smart, but I do want to try and, make sure that we keep the flank of Chungking safe. But I can't defend in this clear terrain. So if he's going to flank my position, I've got no real way to hold on this rail line. So I don't have enough troops to do that. So the plan is to fight a fighting withdrawal north of Cyan into some of this rough terrain where we can form a defensive. The first step of that is pulling these troops south of Cyan back. They're pulling back in combat formation, so in the event that he does attack me, they will be able to pull back successfully. They are going to be in this hex tomorrow, so they're at 45 miles back. These troops here on their eastern flank probably should start withdrawing soon as well. I've held them in place longer because he could try and cross the river here and then get into this clear terrain and threaten the flank of Cyan. And I don't want to let him just easily do that and cut these troops on this rail line off. So these troops are holding in place just a little bit longer. But probably tomorrow they'll have to start pulling back. I guess we could pull them north across the river. That would be an option. They'd move more slowly that direction, though. And to what purpose, I suppose? I suppose we could just start pulling them west. So we'll pull them west on this roadway. We'll have everybody follow. And so these guys are pulling out of their trenches as well, and they will begin marching in combat formation to the west so they can get to Cyan. We'll set up a couple of tripwires of some units, probably at the rough spot here, so we can get into some mountainous defensive lines and then pull north. And that's all I've really got for China this turn. So I think that's it. Let's double check a couple of things here. So top pilots, 1 KIA pilot lost today. No top pilots, I don't think. In terms of ship availability, if we take a look here at ETAs, we can see that we've got Minesweeper coming tomorrow, and then we've got a few more ships in 3 days, but nothing for about 2 weeks that's of any real note. In terms of ground units, group reinforcements, in 1 day we'll have some Hudsons on the eastern U.S. coast. We'll have a bunch of Kingfishers in the eastern U.S., 2 days, some A-29 Hudsons as well in the eastern U.S., some B-18 Bolos arriving in the eastern U.S., and some Hurricanes and Wellingtons and whatnot arriving in 3 days at Aden and Calcutta. B-25Cs arriving in Canberra. That'll be real nice to have some B-25s in Australia, or Canberra. 70, well, actually, I guess it depends. Are they coming in? No, only 2 of them are coming in ready, so we'll have to pull those out of the pool or something. Some Skytrain groups that are a little bit better, 10, 10, and 9. So 29 Skytrains coming in Aden. Those will be useful in the Burma theater. And then we've got 15 Wellingtons. Those will be nice. Some British kind of heavies coming in Aden in 3 days. If we look at ground reinforcements, we can see here that we've got, in 3 days, we've got the 9th Marine Regiment arriving in San Diego, unlocked for us to use. And then in 3 days, we're also getting 3 British infantry brigades arriving in the Middle East. Do we have Aden? Do we have some troop transports here? We do, so that's good. Let's put these guys into port so they'll be ready to transport these troops when they arrive to the relevant theaters. So that'll be nice to have 3 more crack British brigades that we can use in the East. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode of War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, my Let's Play series against Lieutenant Rainbow Slash. I know we've been going a bit slower lately. I don't anticipate things being 1 week per turn going forward. War on the Sea has just sort of dominated my time lately, but we'll get this going, a little bit more regularly, I think, in the future. But until then, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.